Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, entitled Bhagavatam is the Answer to All Questions. We're on text 11. It's September 4th, 2021. We're in text 11. And I'm here with Ladini Shakti, Payal, and Vishnu. And here online, there's Rukmini, Anasuya, Kelly, Lakshmi Priya, George Danielle, Saraswati, Malini, Anandini. Hare Krishna. We have on the board here the verse in Devanagari and English. And so text 11 of Canto 10. Tasu Avatsit Sva Srishtasu Sahasram Parivatsaram Tena Narayana Nama Yat Apa Purusha Udbhava Tasvavatsi Svasrishtasu Sahasram Pavivatsaram Tena Narayano Nama Yadapa Purushodbhava Tasvavatsi Svasrishtasu Sahasram Parivatsaran Tena Narayano Nama Yadapa Purushodbhava Tasvavatsi Svasrishtasu Sahasram Parivatsaram Tena Narayano Nama Yadapa Purushodbhava Tasvavatsi Svasrishtasu Sahasram Parivatsaran Tena Narayano Nama Yadapa Purushodbhava Tasvavatsi Svasrishtasu Sahasram Parivatsaran Tena Narayano Nama Yadapa Purushodbhava. Would anyone online like to chant the verse?
Tasvavatsi Svasrishtasu
Tasvavatsi Svasrishtasu
Sahasram Parivatsaran
Sahasram Parivatsaran
Tena Narayano Nama
Tena Narayano Nama
Yadapa Purushodbhavaha.
Yadapa Purushodbhava. Anyone else online would like to recite the verse? 2, 10, 11.
Tasvavatsit svashishtasu.
Tasvavatsit svasrishtasu.
Sahasram parivatsaran.
Sahasram parivatsaran.
Tena narayano nama.
Tena narayano nama.
Yadapa purushotpava.
Yadapa purushotpava. Tasu. In that. Avatsit. Resided. Sva. Own. Swishtasu. In the matter of creation. Sahasram. 1,000. Parivatsaran. Years of his measurement. Tena. For that reason. Narayana. The personality of Godhead named Narayan. Nama. Name. Yat. Because. Apa. Water. Purusha Udbhava. Emanated from the Supreme Person. Translation. That Supreme Person is not impersonal and therefore is distinctively a Nara or person. Therefore, the transcendental water created from the Supreme Nara is known as Nara. And because he lies down on that water, he is known as Narayana. There's no purport. I'm going to go on to text 12. I'll read the Sanskrit. Dravyam karma chakalascha svabhavo jiva eva cha yadanugrahata santi nasanti yad upeksaya. Translation. One should definitely know that all material ingredients, activities, time and modes, and the living entities who are meant to enjoy them all exist by his mercy only, and as soon as he does not care for them, everything becomes non-existent. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The living entities are the enjoyers of the material ingredients, time, modes, etc., because they want to lord it over the material nature. The Lord is the supreme enjoyer, and the living entities are meant to assist the Lord in his enjoyment and thus participate in the transcendental enjoyment of everyone. The enjoyer and the enjoyed both participate in enjoyment, but deluded by the illusory energy, the living entities want to become the enjoyer like the Lord, although they are not meant for such enjoyment. The jivas, the living entities, are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita as the Lord's superior nature or para-prakriti, and so also it is mentioned in the Vishnu Purana. Therefore, the living entities are never the Purushas or the factual enjoyers. As such, the spirit of enjoyment by the living entity in the material world is false. In the spiritual world, the living entities are pure in nature, and therefore they are associates in the enjoyment of the Supreme Lord. In the material world, the spirit of enjoyment of the living entities by dint of their own actions, karma, gradually fades by the laws of nature, and thus the illusory energy dictates in the ears of the conditioned souls that they should become one with the Lord. This is the last snare of the illusory energy. When the last illusion is also cleared off by the mercy of the Lord, the living entity again becomes reinstated in his original position and thus becomes actually liberated. For this attainment of liberation from the material clutches, the Lord creates the material world, maintains it for some time, 1,000 years of his measurement, as stated in the previous verse, and then again annihilates it by his will. The living entities are therefore completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord, and all their so-called enjoyments by scientific improvement are crushed into dust when the Lord desires. Hare Krishna. Om Gyanaatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Putale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cham Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nasta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2 Chapter 10 Text 11 Tasvavat Sitsva Srishtasu Sahasram Parivatsaran Tena Narayano Nama Yadapa Pushodbhava. That Supreme Person is not impersonal and therefore is distinctively a Nara or person. Therefore, the transcendental water created from the Supreme Nara is known as Nara. And because he lies down on that water, he is known as Narayana. Text 12. Dravyam karma chakalas cha svabhavo jiva eva cha yadanugrahata santi nasanti yad upekshaya. One should definitely know that all material ingredients, activities, time and modes, and the living entities who are meant to enjoy them all exist by his mercy only. And as soon as he does not care for them, everything becomes non-existent. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's see. So in the purport, Prabhupada writes that in the material world, the spirit of enjoyment of the living entities by dint of their own actions, karma, gradually fades by the laws of nature. And thus the illusory energy dictates in the ears of the conditioned souls that they should become one with the Lord. This, actually, I had a new client and like a new client who I've coached recently. And this is precisely why he came to coaching. So he's experiencing that the spirit of enjoyment is fading. So yes, and so he talked about his different attachments and addictions, and yeah. So like, okay, for example, it's smoking marijuana. So he's like, whatever. So it's like, yeah, light up a joint for the 10,000th time. It is so exciting. Ooh, I just can't wait. And it's like, and he's no, there's no joy there.
No.
What to speak of cigarettes, right? That or other. So he listed, and he knows that like my approach to coaching is spiritually based, and he actually used the term. He's tired of chewing cardboard. Cardboard, like a box made of card. That's what he has all these addictions, and he can't get rid of. He feels of course that's what coaching is about. Like, I don't believe you can't. So let's look at this. And but all his, different attachments and addictions, because like it's one thing. Well, yeah, but whoa, there's so much pleasure. It's just like it's all. This is just He's not 18 years old anymore, where there can be some thrill or something. It's all dry. It's all cardboard. I quoted for him because since he used chewing cardboard. So that's a good one. So in the Vedas, it's described puna stravita charvananam. It's like chewing the chewed, chewing the chewed. I gave these. Let's say we have the same piece of gum, and we're on our 15th day now. It's just like, oh my God. Okay. So all right. So and at the same time, not just he doesn't want, and he goes. I want to get my happiness through God. Like, so and he says like, and that's because I know kind of that's where you come from, David. So like, tired of chewing cardboard and right. And he even talked about like some sadhana, getting up before noon, possibly. I mean, 2 or 3 days per week. Okay. Like that.
Is he coming to the seminar?
I'll keep that confidential for me. And so, right. So that's so Prabhupada's emphasizing here. Shukadeva Goswami is emphasizing that's what the material energy is supposed. It's meant to get us like tired of like trying to enjoy the material energy. We could be stubborn. No, this is great. We can try to hype each other up for another few days or years or lifetime. Really happy, yeah. Okay. Or really, we can go another few lifetimes and keep pretending. And again, there is some like gratification at some point, but he used the economics term. He said like this is completely the law of diminishing returns, right? Like so, and he goes, even when he was enjoying it, it was just some superfluous gratification, because no, the gratification's not there. And diminishing returns, whatever example we want to use, whether it's sex or that first slice of pizza compared to that 11th slice of pizza. Okay, right. So that's the nature of material enjoyment. That's the nature. And then that's when let me get out of this cycle. Moksha. There's this paradigm from the Vedas, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And the idea is like dharma, be kind of like virtuous and fulfill our material desire. Be, maybe religious like that. And then we'll have economic development in a clean way. And then we can enjoy kama, we can enjoy our senses in a way that's not degrading like that. And then again, after a few years, maybe decades, maybe lifetimes, maybe millions of lifetimes, then we get like this whole kama thing, it's not working for me if I'm honest. It's not like profoundly fulfilling for the soul. All right, so then moksha. Let me get out of this place. Let me get out of the cycle of birth, death, and let me make that my goal. All right. So, all right. And then, so Prabhupada addresses them. And thus the illusory energy dictates in the ears, whispering to us of the conditioned soul that they should become one with the Lord. This is the last snare of the illusory energy, right? Because the idea of enjoyment is still there. But yeah, I'm sick and tired, exhausted, and trying to true the truth, trying to enjoy the mirage. The examples there of like an animal might see a mirage in the desert just 50 feet away. It's running, but it's just a mirage. It's not, there's no oasis there. There's no oasis there. But but now, with the waves of heat, it's just 100 feet in that direction. And then eventually the animal dies. So like we're dying a spiritual death in the desert of material life. And it's just, and then maybe some of us, or maybe all of us to some extent, like, no, I'm not. I'm still, well, yeah, it's suffering now, but once the pandemic's over, then you're gonna see, I'm gonna enjoy like anything. It's great. So, yeah, and once I, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. So the idea is, well, I want to enjoy, but I didn't, not here. So then the last snare of Maya, the illusion, the mirage, is like, I'll become God. And there are many philosophies that support that, even in the Vedas. The Vedas they're a desire to nigama kapataror galitam palam, which means whatever we want, it's there in the Vedas. If we want material enjoyment at a high level, it's there. We want to go to heaven, material heaven, it's there. And we want to merge into oneness. We want, so there's paths to do that. And that's why the Bhagavatam starts, Dharma Pujita Kotivatra Parama Nimats Sanam Satam Vidyam Vastavam Achavasta Chividam, completely rejecting all cheating in the name of religion. All cheating means religion or spiritual process, where the carrot on the stick is, yes, give to my church, or do this meditation, or do this austerity, and then you'll be powerful in this world. You'll enjoy like anything, and it might work. Or then you'll realize that you're God, like that. Then, whoa, that's a high level enjoyment. And so there are paths like that. So Bhagavatam is saying, like, all Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Triguna Vishya Nistaguna Bhavarjuna Tetanva Nichisattvisto Niryogakshem Atmavan. Krishna says, he says to Arjuna, look, the Vedas are mostly misleading. They're about the modes of nature. He says to Arjuna, transcend that. Sure, the goal of all those Vedas, meeting different people where they're at. Not just Vedas, but the Quran, the Bible, like meeting people where that is ultimately to bring them to that which is not cheating, pure devotional service to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And so, so because like this idea of realizing you're trying to enjoy this body, and like, come on, this just dead matter, and there's some healthy realization there. And then just like the analogy, like we're not the car, we're the driver of the car. Okay. So then Prabhupada gives the example, like, okay, so we're not the car. That's a good realization, right? The car is a vehicle. All right, so I'm not the car. I'm the driver of the car. So what do we do now? So, drive the car. Yeah, that's what Prabhupada says. So what do we do now? Put gas in the car, take it to a car wash. Yeah. Has it gotten serviced this month? Right. So that's what Prabhupada says, that what is nourishment for the driver of the car. So that knowledge is missing for those paths that assert that the impersonal realization that we're not the body, that's definitely good, and that's the other part of this that this client, because that's so So he wants to stop chewing cardboard. It's his words, nice. And he wants to get his bliss in God. And he talks about his children, because he says, like, that's the example he wants to get his children. And that's the legacy, not just like dad's addicted and this, oh my God, his children are going, he's looking at the legacy. So he wants, like, dad's a godly person and really dedicated, willing to do the heavy lifting and like that. And then now he already has like kind of a path that he's attached to. And it's a path to kind of go towards the moksha. And that's the thing, like so I don't know how it's all going to unfold, but like he sort of tried it, but it's not cardboard, but neither is it giving him the spiritual enthusiasm to have the strength to stop chewing cardboard. And so I didn't tell him this, but like, you could try that path for another 20 years and you'll probably still be chewing cardboard. It's not my role to say that at this point yet. But it might be tomorrow.
Next session.
Maybe next session, yeah. So, yeah, so because, and that's it. And so, so what is nurturing for the driver of the car? So we only get that in Bhakti Yoga. Like, what is spiritual sound, spiritual dancing, spiritual music? Otherwise, it's just like, I'm not the car. But see, the nature of the self is to be active. What do we do? And if we don't know anything other than driving the car and putting gas in it, then we'll go back to that. Even if we have some intellectual knowledge that I'm not the car, which is good to have that, but it's not complete. I stumbled upon a conversation. It was late 60s, Prabhupada talking to Allen Ginsberg. Some of you might know Allen Ginsberg. So he was a real supporter of Prabhupada right from the beginning, 1966. And at least for several years, Prabhupada kept close contact with him. Allen Ginsberg was, for those who aren't aware, he was an intellectual leader of the hippie movement, the beatnik movement. He was a poet and intellectual leader. And he's the one who said, they interviewed him in 66, and he was like the whole psychedelic drugs thing, and he was like a leader there. And they interviewed him and they asked him about the Swami and this Hare Krishna movement. And he said, this Krishna consciousness is more far out than any acid trip I've ever taken. So that was a powerful sales pitch for many at that time. More far out than any acid trip. Well, I'm there, I'm with you. So they started coming to Prabhupada and chanting Hare Krishna. He was a very influential person. So this was late 60s. I think it was in Columbus, Ohio. Sometimes I just choose at random and listen to something while I'm taking prasad. And so in this conversation, which actually decades ago, I read the transcript. Here I was listening to it. And so Ginsberg, who's very respectful of Prabhupada, very respectful, and Prabhupada's very respectful to him. So Ginsberg said he was talking to Richard Alpert. Raise your hand if you know who is Richard Alpert. I mean, it's a whole history lesson in late 60s psychedelia. Thank you, Payal. Okay, there you go. Ram Dass, Be Here Now. Yeah, so he was a leader of the tune in, turn on, and drop out movement. And right, so he was a professor at Harvard with Timothy Leary, early 60s. And so they started doing some Harvard University authorized experiments on this substance called lysergic acid diethylamide number 25, LSD. And it was legal because no one was abusing it yet, using it as a recreational drug. And so the experiments kind of went over the edge, and the professors went a bit over the edge. So they dropped out of being professors. And then they started, this is history. No, Alpert and Leary. And so they were really the main pioneers of the LSD thing. And then around 65, the United States government made it illegal because they saw a lot of people starting to do this for recreational purposes. Okay, so or recreational or spiritual, whatever someone wants to call it. So Ginsburg was referring to Richard Alpert. I'm not sure if he had the name Ram Dass yet at the time, but he said, Richard Alpert said that LSD is like the Christ of the Kali Yuga. And Ginsburg was very serious. And LSD is like the Christ, because the idea is that in this Kali Yuga, and Alpert had already been to India and knows about Kali Yuga, something. He had a guru there in India. The idea is that, and Ginsburg said, because in Kali Yuga, people, they're not like ready to do austerity and spiritually strong. So they need an easy path to salvation. They need an easy path to salvation. So Professor Alpert, saying LSD is the Christ for Kali Yuga. So Prabhupada responded. He said, that is a very nice statement. Prabhupada said, that is a very nice statement. People in this age, they need an easy path for salvation. That is a very good statement. And then Prabhupada said, and that path is not LSD, it's kirtan. So wonderful response from Prabhupada, fully encouraging. Yes, like appreciating, that is true. Yeah, Kali Yuga. Yeah, and it's not LSD, it's kirtan. Just by the way. So then they just, and so they're both very respectful and civil. And Ginsburg says, so Prabhupada goes on that LSD is a material chemical. Lysergic acid diethylene. It's a material. You can, in a previous life, I studied some things about these things. Actually, my first position in social services, mental health counseling, was at a place called On Drugs Incorporated. And so there was suicide intervention and short-term counseling, empathic listening, and we did a lot with people who overdosed on drugs and things like that. So we studied this. And so Prabhupada said it's a material chemical. So you're not going to go to spiritual places. It's material chemical. So then Ginsburg, they went back, and then Ginsburg said, well, so kirtan is material sound vibration. So Prabhupada said, no. Right, so that's a distinction. They said, no, kirtan, this is Golokara Primadana Harinams. It's transcendental sound vibration. And by exposing ourselves to kirtan, to Bhagavatam, to Bhagavad Gita, then we spiritualize our senses. And it was quite an intricate, and then said, well, through something material, can't we come to the spiritual? And then Prabhupada said, it's very, very risky. It's very risky. Right? Because there is some philosophy like that. By indulging in material things, you become so sick of it, like that. There's different things. So Prabhupada emphasized, no, kirtan is spiritual sound vibration, and prasadam is spiritual food, and like that. And then he talked about that this bhakti yoga, it's about, this is a process where we're guided now that we know we're not the car, and many in the LSD generation, they came to that realization like that. But now that we know we're not the car, what's nourishment for the driver? What's nurturing for the driver? That's spiritual dancing, spiritual food. So this is an encompassing process. That this Bhakti Yoga, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Bhagaprabhujita Janya Eshubayagam Ganam Chayat Hetukam. That by practicing Bhakti Yoga, one automatically gets the detachment that those seeking impersonal moksha are looking for. one automatically gets knowledge, one automatically gets, by practicing bhakti, we automatically are realized in the absolute truth of who we are as spirit souls and not the body. And what's the nature of God? What's the nature of matter? So that's why this bhakti yoga, Prabhupada emphasizes again and again, this is the all-encompassing, complete process that includes the benefits of it. It includes understanding we're not the car. It includes spiritual joy that gives us the strength to not chew on cardboard and trying to get some juice out of cardboard like that. So it's that's why it's this bhakti yoga as given here in Bhagavatam. It's not a process of elimination. It's a process of transformation. It's a process of utilization. It's not like we need to give up. We need to give up. It's about learning the art and science, how to dovetail everything in the service of Krishna. And the manual for that, that's Prabhupada's guidance. Anasaktasya vishayan yataham upayunjata nibandha Krishna samde yuktam vairagam uchyate. That Rupa Goswami emphasizes real renunciation is renouncing the enjoying spirit. Yes, Prabhupada emphasizes in the purport, we're meant to be enjoyers, secondary enjoyers. Our enjoyment comes from nimittamatram bhavasavyasacchi, by surrendering ourselves to be an instrument for Krishna's pleasure, then we're ecstatic. And trying to enjoy separately, so many analogies are there. In the fourth canto, there's the analogy of the stomach is the center. The hand enjoys by surrendering to its role, serving the food to the stomach. Then the hand is nourished. If the hand thinks, why should I feed the stomach? I'll enjoy directly. And the hand's trying to mash the food, and it's disgusting, it's obnoxious. That's the idea here, right? That because then everyone suffers. Even the hand doesn't get nourished because that's not the process. The process is to feed the stomach. So in that analogy, Krishna is the stomach, and then we're blissful. And so our nature is Ananda, bliss, and we get that bliss through hearing the whispering of the illusory energy, to get tired of trying to chew the tube. And then in our approach to, okay, let me liberate myself, to not get distracted by that last snare of Maya. Yes, I'll merge with the great oneness. No, to realize, well, actually, so Prabhupada, because earlier in this chapter, there's a quintessential verse that Prabhupada quotes to illustrate what real liberation is. Text 6 of chapter 10, canto 2. Muktirhi vanyata rupam svarupena vyavastiti. Liberation is the permanent situation of the form of the living entity after he gives up the changeable, gross, and subtle material bodies. The form of the living entity. So yeah, these are material forms, and if we try to enjoy materially, then so much of life is trying to numb the reality that, like, this is like chewing cardboard, but I have too much pride to admit it, because everyone seems to be enjoying so much. And I just went on Facebook. They're really living it up. They've got a good life. No, I've peeked into their lives, so I can't admit that, it's a failure for me. So then I'll numb myself through. We can all make our lists of our escape strategies, numbing strategies. So, and to go for, yes, let me go for liberation as described in the Bhagavatam. As described in the Bhagavatam. Bhakti yoga, engaging this body, engaging the mouth, the ears, the propensity to relate, to communicate, engaging everything in Krishna's service. Not a false renunciation, not palu vairagya, false renunciation, aware in the examples given, like someone finds a wallet on the street. So material consciousness is, wow, this $800 in the wallet, it's mine, got it. Okay. And the incomplete renunciation, incomplete is, this is not my driver's license, my credit card, this is not my $800. I will not touch it. So there's something more noble about that than I'll enjoy it. And then the complete, like where we feel most in integrity is, okay, here's this wallet. This is not for me to enjoy, but it is for someone to enjoy. Let me get it to its owner and give it to its owner. So everything is for Krishna's enjoyment, and to renounce it without realizing that it's for Krishna's enjoyment is incomplete. So whether it's the house in our name, relations with family members or friends, intelligence, our propensity to speak, communicate, eat, our propensity to work. Okay, not to try to artificially give it up and resulting in frustration, which is what's happened for my client in a few cycles now. The Bhoga Tyaga cycle. Try to enjoy the cardboard, then renounce and try to liberate, but with no knowledge of what's nurturing for the driver of the car. So this is Bhakti Yoga, the complete encompassing manual for that spiritual joy, as Prabhupada says here. As such, yes, in the spiritual world, the living entities are pure in nature, and therefore they are associates in the enjoyment of the Supreme Lord. So we get to enter into that, even while in this body, through following this process. Ihayasya, haredasya, karmana manasa dhira, nikilas vapyavastasu, jivan muktasa uchyate. We don't need to wait till this body is destroyed. Prabhupada closes the purport with some poignant language. And all their so-called enjoyments by scientific improvement are crushed into dust when the Lord desires. Okay. I am perfect, powerful, happy, like that. It's all crushed into dust after 1,000,000 years. No, like tomorrow. Okay, 20 years at maximum. Whatever, I mean, we have materials like castles in the sand. Castles in the sand, Pavarta Apto Bhajatam Dharmata. What really is the value of advancing in those? And Prabhupada says, like, advancement in Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, not knowledge that helps us advance, and then it's, Prabhupada used the word, it's pretentious, it's superfluous. It doesn't get at the actual essence of the self, the actual essence, actually the self of the self of the self, the core of the core. When we get to that's Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. So that's the most essential relationship. We cultivate that, then like the one that gives value to all the zeros, everything flourishes. That's the rising tide that lifts all ships. Everything else is going to be crushed by time, like castles in the sand, and the tide comes all over. That will happen. This is not fantasy. This is reality. This is reality, right? Anything we build materially will be crushed. Doesn't mean to stop endeavoring. It means to, okay, let me endeavor, let me be dharmic, let me endeavor, and whatever. I run a business. I'm employed by this company. I have responsibilities to these families. Let me be responsible and put Krishna in the center, and then there's meaning there. And otherwise, Shrama eva hi kevalam. Useless waste of time. All right, and so I'll close with one thing. There's one thing in verse 11 which didn't have a purport, but and it's not in the verse, it's in the word for word. So I'm just going to mention it. So I'll tell you to not ask me about it because I don't understand it. But I thought, okay. So Sahasram is translated as 1,000. Parivatsaran, years of his measurement. Then in the purport to 12, to text 12, Prabhupada says, for this attainment of liberation from the material clutches, the Lord creates the material world, maintains it for some time, 1,000 years of his measurement, as stated in the previous verse, and then again annihilates it by his will. So that's very interesting, because, you know, we hear a lot about material time and 14 dimensions of material time. There's Brahma's time, where like 100 of our years, it's 311 trillion, 40 billion of his years, and each planetary system has its time relativity, kind of like Einstein discussed. Prabhupada gives Einstein credit there. Now we think like the spiritual world, time is absent. Time is conspicuous by its absence. So we're talking about Narayan here. And so 1,000 years of Narayan's measurement. So I don't know of any other reference in Prabhupada's books where I get any more information. What's the time paradigm for Vishnu, for Narayan? But there it is. Hare Krishna. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your association. Thanks for giving your hearts and intelligence to Srimad Bhagavatam. I welcome at this time any questions or comments. Ladini Shakti.
I have few comments. One is that we just recently had fight with Yogeshwara about time in the spiritual world.
Okay.
And then we found like few references from Srila Prabhupada about like time actually is
In the spiritual world, yeah.
spiritual world.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that, so I fight with him, but then he gave me the references from Prabhupada, so
Okay.
what could I do?
So if I understand correctly, the two of you don't discuss, you fight about philosophical things. Okay.
But it's still spiritual, right?
Yeah, you get purification, I'm sure. Thanks for sharing. Yeah.
And then, yeah, I was thinking like the chewing the chew, and how we are like trying to like reassure each other. Yes, this is enjoyment. So when I was like younger, I didn't go to much parties or vacations or something like that. But anytime I went, I was so miserable. And in my experience, everyone else was also really miserable. And so next time I wouldn't go. And everyone would tell me, it was just amazing.
Great
like,
party.
It was like great party, like we enjoyed like anything. And then, okay, so next time I'm like, okay, I'll go through. And the same experience, like I'm miserable, everyone else is miserable. And I've done like that few times. And I was really thinking, okay, so maybe when I am there, everyone is miserable, but when I am not there, but then eventually I got that. They are probably also miserable when I am not there. So it was interesting. And then last point, I want to make it, it's more like a question maybe. Is like this, like feeding the stomach, like feeding Krishna.
Yeah.
So like that's like one place where I really appreciate like coming to Krishna through the spiritual master.
Yeah.
Because I think like in my relationship with Krishna, I have like so much going on of like anyway, why Krishna should be the stomach and not me, and like, and then I really don't like how he created this material world. Yeah. So there is like so much. But with the spiritual master, it's not like that. Like Krishna Prabhupada, I really have like full trust that he means good with me, and he's not responsible for like this. I know that I should think I am responsible, but I really think Krishna is responsible anyway. So yeah, so sometimes I have the tendency, or maybe it's a strategy to like put Krishna aside and just like, okay, serve the spiritual master or the devotees, because it's like simple and I can relate to them. Anyway, so.
Thank you, Ladini Shakti. Thanks for all your points about time in the spiritual world and your personal experience of chewing the chews. Like there's no taste chewing cardboard, but the world's built on the hype each other up. And you, thanks for sharing your personal experience. And then, yeah, Jai Srila Prabhupada, and thanks for bringing that very much, Ladini, because I didn't really mention the spiritual master principle. Krishna represents the stomach in that analogy. But practically speaking, our service is directed to Srila Prabhupada. And Krishna says, one who thinks he's my devotee is not my devotee. One who sees himself as the devotee of my pure devotee. He is my devotee. So we approach Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, and it's not just like, oh, that's the system, which like psychologically, emotionally, there's reasons for it. There's reasons for it, and so like, because we think, yeah, so Krishna is the enjoyer. It's like, yeah, well, why? I mean, okay, like that. Whereas, no, really, right? Because yeah, he's enjoying like anything. But then, because we have our envious nature. But then we think like, yeah, direct our service to Prabhupada. And then that's why Krishna sets it up. And he's like, well, Prabhupada, he suffered. Of course, he's always transcendental, but like, wow, at 70 years old, because he cares about us. And we learn the history of Prabhupada. And then that's so inspiring and in an approachable way. Not that we shouldn't hear about Krishna and the cowherd boys and this and that. But he probably had 2 heart attacks on the ship, and he was freezing in New York City, and he was getting up at 1 a.m. and to give us these wonderful purports and share. He just gave and this happened in the 1960s, and so our service goes through Srila Prabhupada, and so that's really what serving the stomach looks like for us. Thanks for that, because I didn't mention that principle. Thank you, Lady. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Payal.
Going off of what, well, first of all, thank you for class. I very much appreciated it. Just adding to what you're sharing about Srila Prabhupada, I distinctly remember the very first time I was in a Cooking with Krishna class with Marie, and she was teaching us like how to pray to begin with before we began cooking to Krishna with Krishna. And I remember we read, I don't know exactly what it's called, but in part of it, it's similar to what we say in the morning when the prayers to Prabhupada, to our spiritual master, that you open my eyes from darkness, my darkened soul. Yes. And I don't know the exact words, but
towards light of knowledge.
Yes, yeah. And I remember very clearly reading it for the first time and just being like, no, I don't have darkness in me. This is weird. I was just like, this is okay. I'm here to learn cooking.
Cooking, yeah. Right.
But I'm not dark. I'm an enjoyer. Like, I'm gonna enjoy. I want to enjoy my food. I want to enjoy life. And I'm not dark. And it's been how many years? I have no idea how many years.
4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years since that class, and my eyes are being open to my darkness and the gift of Prabhupada and how he's beginning to open my eyes to my darkened soul, and entering that light. And I just never understood even the power of those words, like my spiritual master. So I'm just feeling gratitude to actually understand those words and not have understood them before. It might have taken 5 years. I know I have a lot of work to still do. And another thing I wanted to share is, so when your reply in your email to me, and part of what you shared about the conversation, there's a lecture that Prabhupada gave, and he shared there's something from the Bible about being meek and humble. And again, that was something that I think I looked at meekness as weakness. Versus understanding, like, being meek and humble is who is the controller of it all. Like, in the Prabhupada talking about, like, at any time Krishna can decide this is done. And so I feel like, I really appreciate in the Prabhupada, it's like it's at his mercy that we are even here.
And at any moment he can crush into dust everything.
I'm grateful for more of an understanding of meekness and humbleness as well. Hi, Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Payal. I'm inspired by your sharing. My heart's moved by your sharing and your process of coming to appreciate Prabhupada. And even that first verse that you heard at Marie's place in that first cooking Krishna class and like that, and how you're you've transformed your relationship with that text. Yeah. So that's it. We're coming to some realization in my attempts to chew the cardboard. This is just ignorance. This is darkness. And I appreciate what you say about meekness and humility, because we could see, like, yes, all the godly qualities, Prabhupada emulates, certainly, including meekness and humility. And you can see he's fiery for Krishna. So meekness and humility, and like, oh, I can't find my voice. Oh, I don't want to speak of it. It's not humiliation. So meekness and humility, knowing Prabhupada knows that Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta, is known as the lion. Okay, so he's not meek and humble. He's completely meek and humble. Meek and humble means knowing our position and fulfilling it with enthusiasm. And sometimes that might mean being in the background in silence. I know it's not, that doesn't mean silence because I'm too scared to speak. But silence, I know material nature, super soul, they're taking its course. It's not my role to speak. And sometimes meek, humble, surrender to my position means being a firebrand for Krishna, using language like, are crushed into dust, like that. So, transform your relationship on what genuine meekness and humility mean and what it can look like. Thank you, Pai. Len Cohen.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I personally have met Allen Ginsberg several times, and I just want to say that, yeah, LSD was part of the what was going on then, but more importantly, just from my own personal experience, if it wasn't for people like Allen Ginsberg and George Harrison, I never would have become interested in Indian culture, and via India culture, the Vedas. Like I remember maybe the first time I met Allen Ginsberg was at the State University of New York at Buffalo, and he was up on stage with a harmonium and chanting the Maha Mantra, incorrectly, I might add. But still, that was really probably the first time I heard the Maha Mantra through Allen Ginsberg. And then also another time I met him in Philadelphia at Earth Day in 1970. And I remember I was a little agitated at what was going on in this rally. I won't go into why, but anyway, I probably was high for one thing, and I was agitated. And I went to the tent where the dignitaries, where the speakers were hanging out, and with the intention of seeking out Allen Ginsberg and to ask him, what the hell's going on here? This isn't right. Help me, And I went to see him, and he. The only thing he said to me, he ohmed me off. He basically ohmed me off. He just was like, I'm not going to respond to your agitation and your anger. I'm just going to say Om. So I think these figures from the counterculture in the 60s were really seminal in leading a lot of people towards India and the Vedas. And yeah, the LSD thing maybe isn't such a great way to go. But if it hadn't been, these figures are still kind of more in my mind. George Harrison, Allen Ginsberg, Ram Dass, these figures are still alive in my mind. Maybe I'm just an old hippie, right? But yeah, Prabhupada, I agree with Prabhupada saying, you're taking a shortcut, and it's not going to lead to spiritual realizations because it's a material chemical. Yeah. But I just want to give some props to those counterculture icons of mine for pointing us to a direction to even want to take a spiritual path. Because we're coming from the 50s and 60s where it's total materialism in American society. And so they were saying, yeah, you don't drop out. Yeah, sure, drop out. You don't need to join the rat race. You don't need to get a fancy car, and look somewhere else for your happiness. That it's not in the material things, and that is in the spiritual way. So yeah, I just wanted to add that little gloss onto everything you said. But for me, those figures are still very much alive in my consciousness, and kind of help to push me towards a spiritual direction. Thank you, David. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Dr. Lin. Thanks very much. Everything you say is true, and I resonate, agree with it. I feel it's completely safe to say Allen Ginsberg did more service for Prabhupada's movement than I could ever hope to do in this lifetime. That's true. And then a million times more than that with George Harrison. So that's all true. That doesn't mean we should go rushing to take LSD. You get the distinction. So yeah, so it's true what you're saying. It's true what you're saying. And they were bold. They were bold pioneers on behalf of Prabhupada. Maybe they didn't become sadhaka bhaktas, and for us to progress, we ought to become sadhaka bhaktas. Yeah, back before I was chanting Hare Krishna japa, I read books like Be Here Now, and it influenced me. It influenced me in the way you're saying, like an openness to, well, really an openness to read Prabhupada's Science of Self-Realization and like that. Okay, so this is probably improper, but I'll mention, yeah, because you mentioned Allen Ginsberg playing harmonium and chanting. Actually, there's a nice video I saw several years ago on YouTube, and it's Allen Ginsberg's being interviewed by a very conservative journalist named William Buckley, very conservative. And in the middle of the interview, Ginsberg, who's in suit and tie, he pulls out the harmonium and he just starts chanting Hare Krishna, and he gets the words right. And the journalist, again, it's not like a hippie journalist. It's a very conservative journalist, William Buckley, who's actually a very fine writer, I will say. Not transcendental, but fine writer. And Buckley Buckley's like, he's like amused. It's like, he's amused, and then Buckley makes a funny comment, funny but respectful comment about Hare Krishna. So there's a video from like whatever 67 of Ginsberg playing harmonium on a TV interview. Thanks for sharing, Bhakti. Malini.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
So I was thinking the beginning of your class and Prabhupada's purport about enjoyment fading away.
Yeah.
Enjoyment fade away. The last snare of Maya is to want to merge in with Krishna and be God.
Yeah.
In that movement of like those young Americans coming out of the 50s with like silver spoon in their hand, their parents were successful with economic development, and then they went to enjoyment, and then they wanted moksha. So they just let go and wanted to be God. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, it seems that in order to come to that place of wanted spiritual realization, even on a level of moksha, one needs to have the sense gratification or a certain level of material comfort. And I was thinking about how, as long as we are anchoring for something, so let's say I don't have enough food,
Yeah.
or shelter, that I'm anchoring for something material, thinking that's my happiness, like you
Yeah.
said about the coronavirus. When the coronavirus disappeared, then I will be happy. For some people, it's like, when I have food enough for my children, I will be happy. When I have a shelter, I will be happy. When the war is over. So it seems that there is a connection between karma and spiritual life, even so it's not an absolute connection.
Yeah.
Of course, we can have people who don't have any food and cannot feed their children coming to spiritual life.
Right.
It will be more rare than people who are comfortable because of that effect of the fading away of the illusion of enjoyment. And, you know, same thing with people who are really in war zone and things like that. Probably for some, it turned them to Krishna, and there is no atheist in a folk soul. And at the same time, that turning to Krishna may not be that solid because the primary needs are not met.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of that sense of the material, to be materially satiated. It is kind of a qualification, and that's acquired through just karma.
Thanks very much for that, Malini. Yeah, it's, I appreciate that enhancement of the point of that progression. That, okay, yeah, that, right. So bhakti is transcendental, and someone can be highly affluent, or someone can be below poverty level, and they can take to the transcendental process of bhakti. So bhakti is not dependent on any material asset or lack of it. At the same time, the standard process is dharma, and then nice, someone's dharmic, and then you get nice economic development, affluent comfort, and then quality sense gratification, quality enjoyment, quality food, and quality sex life, and quality social life, and you have a nice status in society. That's the standard progress. And then at some point in life, you realize, okay, I did that. I'm complete. It's beginning to feel like chewing cardboard. Let me go for liberation. That is, and if we're not complete in that, and we're not getting the mercy to just grab onto transcendence, then we might not become spiritual, because we didn't do complete economic development and get the house we want and all of that. We're not complete in that. And then we're just envious of those, and like, and then we might come back lifetime after lifetime till we do material life in a solid way, and then get, yeah, this is like chewing cardboard. It took me a few lifetimes to get it. Thanks for that, Malini.
Yeah, and like connected with karma is that it seems that it's not necessarily one lifetime, like you just said. Imagine like I'm poor and I'm anchoring for more something, but still in my heart I'm pious, I believe in God, maybe I go to church, and then next life I get a little bit more abundance, and like that the process goes on, not necessarily in one lifetime, like you said. Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Malini. Hare Krishna. George, Danielle, someone there in the Mara family has your hand up.
Hare Krishna, David.
Hare
Thank you so much for class. I'm having some confusion in regards to kind of practically offering service through the spiritual master.
Yeah.
And the confusion, it comes from what I'm experiencing as an apparent contradiction between like two statements. So in class today, we said that we mentioned the statement that he who thinks, Krishna saying, he who thinks is my servant is not my servant, and he who is the servant of my servant is my servant. And in chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna says, just think of me, like just simply think of me.
Yes.
So, yeah.
All right, thanks for that. An analogy that's helpful for me to resolve the apparent contradiction and to see where it's synergistic. So like I can say, I want a direct relationship with the book. Okay, so I'm trying to read, and actually I'm not reading a word. So this has really impacted me because even a year ago I could read something. Anyhow, I guess I'm not Superman. Okay, so like that. So then I can go, okay, I'll put on these. So now, so I could say, these glasses are in the way between my eyes and the book. These glasses are in the way. But no, actually, so in one sense, they are in the way. But actually, the omnipotent person, actually, these glasses enhance my direct relationship with the book. So it's a chichi beta beta tattva, sometimes one different. So by serving through our current link to the Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, in one sense, we could say Prabhupada's between me and Krishna. And by serving Prabhupada, that enhances our direct relationship with Krishna. If we go like, spiritual master, the whole Parampara system, get out of the way. It's me and Krishna. It's all blurry. We don't get anything. We go through the Parampara system and most immediately our current link, Srila Prabhupada, and that enhances our direct relationship with Krishna. It enhances our capacity to think of Krishna. Man mana bhavaman bhaktu majidi mam namaskaru. So that's the apparently paradoxical mystery of the disciplic succession. Same analogy, a bit more sophisticated. Let's say if I want to directly see the star, my eye and the star. So I could say, like in a high-powered telescope, there's a series of finely crafted lenses. So I look through the eye hole in the telescope, and I could say, oh, all these lenses are in the way. Oh, but no, actually, those lenses, in a sense, they're in the way. But actually, those lenses enhance the direct relationship between my vision and the star. So that's the Parampara system.
It's very helpful, and I can definitely understand how when reading something like Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, like having Prabhupada's translations and word for word and purports, each has like a different layer to it that kind of fits with the analogy of that you're saying with the lenses. I guess when I'm just about to engage in practical service out in the world, though, I often, like, my go-to is just, please Krishna, engage me in your service. But then sometimes I get confused and I'm like, please Prabhupada, engage me in Krishna's service, or like, please Prabhupada, engage me in your service. But sometimes it doesn't even make sense, especially like my job is like a tooth cobbler. And I'm like, why would Prabhupada care? You know what I mean? Like, and so I find myself, because I'm such a rule follower, and maybe that's like a, I don't know, belief barrier or an assumption I need to examine with myself. But I often find myself going from this mood of like when I'm trying to surrender to be an instrument, and I get caught up in like, should I throw Lord Chaitanya in there and like add Jesus? But then I get all like, you know, I get thrown off my thing. And I guess I'm wondering, is it all fine? Can I just say that to Krishna? Can I say it to Prabhupada? Do all of those apply, I guess?
Yeah, I appreciate your response to your question. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good if we're taking shelter of Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada. Prabhupada, please engage in your service. Taking shelter of Krishna. Sarvadaman Pritya Gamam Vikamsha. Please, Krishna, please engage in your service. If we're looking at a picture of Prabhupada, picture of Krishna, it's non-different. Yeah, there's different flavors, different moods, but it's all one in essence, enhancing our bhakti yoga. And so yeah, we're not talking about here like going to Krishna and like trying to move Prabhupada aside, but naturally in serving Krishna through Srila Prabhupada, Sometimes we're focusing on Srimati Radharani. Sometimes we're focusing on Lord Chaitanya. Sometimes we're focusing on Prabhupada, sometimes on Balaram. It's all good. That's why through Srila Prabhupada, we get this variety. And sometimes our heart naturally goes there. And with yeah, at least some foundational, maybe not, on the surface, but at least understanding, I'm getting the Maha Mantra. I'm getting this idea to always remember Krishna. I'm getting that through Srila Prabhupada. And at any particular time in the day, focus on a picture or lecture from Prabhupada, focus on a verse from Krishna and Bhagavad Gita, focus on the mood of Arjuna. It's all fine. Focus on Jesus, pure devotee. It's all good.
I appreciate that response very much, David. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Anandini.
I had a very short comment.
Oh, okay, yeah, Malini, I wasn't sure if your hand was up from you. Malini.
George, I knew a devotee that I have a lot of respect for, and she was praying every day to Krishna, please engage me in Srila Prabhupada's service.
Thanks for that, Malini. Yeah, right. Bringing it all together. Thank you, Malini. Anandini.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for class and for all the sharings and discussions. And I just want to share something funny, or I find it humorous. During this pandemic, there was a big demonstration in Berlin, in Germany, around all the restrictions and media and all this. And there was one Krishna follower or Krishna devotee. I think his name is Prem Prayojan. He was there. So there were thousands of people, and he was giving a talk, and I didn't like his talk. I was shocked by what he said. I don't know if it's true or not, but anyway, what happened, there were lots of his followers, and they started the kirtan, and they engaged these hundreds of people at the demonstration in kirtan. And then there were reporters there, and there was like a news on the main news. There was this reporter, and he was saying, I don't know what's happening here, but this is like a most ecstatic party I've ever been to. And everyone is singing Hare Krishna. I don't know who this Hare Krishna is, but he seems to be a very inspiring person. So everyone wanted to know who is Hare Krishna.
That's a wonderful story. That's a wonderful story. Prem Prayojan Prabhu and devotees going to the the protest and filling the air with kirtan, and how the reporter responded. That it is funny. Thanks for sharing that. Very funny, transcendentally funny. Ladina, you had a comment?
Yes, I have a question actually. Anandini, thank you for sharing, by the way. That's really great.
Yes.
It's not even funny, but it's amazing. So, I want to go back to Malini's comment that, for us, some level of satisfaction and Krishna, of course, not absolutely, but for example, there is so much glorification of poverty from Narada Muni or Queen Kunti, or then okay, on the hellish planets, there is not so much Krishna consciousness because they are so miserable, but then on the heavenly planets,
Yeah.
There is not so much drive for it either because they are so enjoying so much.
Yeah.
So I'm
it's not tasting like cardboard for me.
So of course it's to have you be idea. It's good to get to the have and realize, oh, it didn't give me the happiness that I expected. But it doesn't seem that there is so much correlation, or some maybe
Correlation between
having the satisfaction, or really enjoy or satisfy the senses, and then find, oh, it's quite stale.
Yeah.
So now I go for liberation.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
well, that's what Prabhupada says. Thank you, Ladini. That's what Prabhupada says in this purport. That's the way it's supposed to work. But then it depends on how sincere or not sincere we are. Just right, because so we can find verses in the Shastra that say, like in Bhagavad Gita, Suchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yoga Brashta Vijayate. Krishna says, oh, if you're pious, you did some devotion, okay, then you don't quite get pure completely, but then you'll take birth in a wealthy aristocratic family. Okay, so we can, and then the idea is then wealthy aristocratic family, then you don't need to like work hard just to pay the bills. And then there's time for kirtan, time for chanting extra rounds, time for Bhagavatam. Now we see, well, if we look at most wealthy people, that's not what they're doing with it. So they're squandering the opportunity of what material wealth is supposed to give us an opportunity for. So then there's the quote from Queen Kunti, 8th chapter of the 1st canto. Janmeshwara Shuta Shibir, Idamanamada Puman, Nairahat Yabidatumbai, Tvam Akinchana Gotra. So then she says to Krishna, you're the shelter for the materially exhausted. Right? And she's saying that wealth, being physically attractive, high education, aristocratic birth in an important family, she says these things are impediments. But Krishna says the opposite in the Bhagavad Gita. Right? So it's not mechanical. So someone can be, materially in a very low state, suffering like anything, financially, maybe disease, maybe ugly appearance, whatever, but maybe in a very shameful parental situation, right? And then they can just become this greedy, envious person. I'm going to make it in this world, and I'm going to bring down those. Or someone can be in that situation, go, this is terrible. Krishna, help me. And similarly, someone can be in an affluent, wealthy situation, and you go, wow, the grace of God. Yeah. Okay, let me spend my time and energy. I'm so fortunate. I don't need to go to an office or a factory and do something I don't like. Let me give myself to devotional service. Or someone can be wealthy and just start like exploiting others and just like, I'll buy more yachts for me to enjoy and just be mad. So sure, like there's a way it's supposed to work, and then there's the free will of the spirit soul. Thank you, Lardini.
Can I say one more thing to that? Yes, I'm born in quite a well-situated family, for sure, for Czech Republic at that time. And I have a twin brother. And it's like really interesting because I think I got to the point, or almost to the point of like, yeah, I guess there is no happiness in like expensive vacation or things like this. But my brother is like still like going for like, he got like 2 months ago, he got a new swimming pool, and now he sent me like a bath tube with like the bubbles inside that he's going to get, and then he sent me a picture that he has like 4 beers in front of him on the table, and he's like, and he just like, no,
he is not exhausted yet.
No, he's not yet exhausted. So
thanks for sharing that. And that's right. You have, and that's your twin brother. Yeah. So even twin. So like the same upbringing. The same nurture, the same upbringing, the same socioeconomic status, and different responses as life goes on.
Even like according to astrology, probably very same karma.
Yeah.
And I can see that like in our life how it like plays.
Yeah.
So yeah. But maybe he will come to the exhausted platform.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all for your association. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.